meeting of the Board of Directors of the Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation will be held at Brownsville City Hall, Old Federal Building, Commissioners Chamber, second floor, 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Texas, commencing at 5:37 Thursday, October 17, 2019. The Board of Directors has called this meeting as allowed pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code and applicable resolutions, rules, and procedures as may be adopted from time to time. The Board of Directors may recess from day to day when it does not complete consideration of a particularly long subject as authorized by law. Further, at any time during the course of this meeting, the governing body may retire into a closed session pursuant to the Texas Government Code as may specifically be allowed by law. Item number 1, roll call. Members Jason Wolf and Nico Schaefer are absent today, out of town on a meeting. Item number 2, public comment. We have Leslie Bingham, 2505 Los Portales, Brownsville.
Chairman Guerra, board members, my name is Leslie Bingham. I'm the CEO of Valley Baptist Medical Center here in Brownsville. I am speaking in support of continued funding for VITA from a healthcare provider standpoint. I employ right now somewhere around 850 people here in Brownsville. My parent organization is Valley Baptist Health System, and we employ 3,600 people across the county. Healthcare needs, as you know, grow generally as the population grows. We have disproportionate growth lately as a result of the availability of publicly reported quality and safety data that demonstrate to our local community that often it's better to have healthcare here than to go away to receive healthcare. This year, we experienced about 20% growth in volume. Additionally, we opened a freestanding emergency department in Brownsville, 2 new family practice offices, an orthopedic practice, and an OBGYN practice. We're not only dependent on local schools for our pipeline for new employees, we actually choose to be committed to our local schools for our pipeline as support for the economic growth of the Brownsville community. Currently, I have 95 healthcare provider openings in the hospital today. Generally, as quickly as I fill them, I need more. I'd like you to please consider continued funding for VITA as it helps me meet a current and continued need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bingham, for your time.
Thank you. Christina Romo, 1701 Canyon Circle, Brownsville, Texas.
Good afternoon, my name is Christina Romo. Before VITA, my family annual income was $4,800 a year. Now, after VITA has supported me through college, has helped me graduate, I am now making me personally, my own annual income is $71,000 a year, not including my husband. Without VITA, my family would still be in poverty. We would not be able to be where we're at now to give back to our community, to have our own property, to start building our own house here in Brownsville. VITA has helped us give back to our community. Please help consider funding them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bingham.
Thank you. Item number 3, consent agenda items. Consideration and action, if any, on the following items. Approval of minutes of special, workshop, and regular board meetings, September 13, 2019, September 24, 2019, and September 19, 2019.
I did notice one piece of information that was missing about the third workshop we had. It had to do with exploring the relationship with ResTech a little more, and that we left that kind of undecided, so I want to make sure that makes it into the minutes from that meeting. I didn't see anything else besides that.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes, the minutes of the special meeting, the regular meeting, and the workshop.
I move to approve as amended, as stated, the minutes from the 3 meetings.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Item B, approval and acknowledgement of invoices and miscellaneous claims.
So the item that I just mentioned a second ago, I have a question about one item on this section. It's basically the payment to the Rio South Texas Economic Development Council. Is that a payment that was due before the last meeting, or is that?
Right, so that's correct. Regarding the rest Rio South Texas Economic Council, the discussion prior was in the workshop was around the 2020 budget. This particular item that you're talking about was from the prior budget.
2019. Okay.
Correct, so it's expenditure from the prior budget.
Perfect, thank you. Do y'all have any issues?
Any other questions? I entertain a motion.
Yeah. I move to approve as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 4, discussion and acknowledgement of GBIC financials and investment report.
Good evening, Honorable Chairman and board members. I'll briefly go over the financials. They're part of your packet. On page 1, we have a dashboard representing the snapshot of the financials. Top right-hand left corner, you have the balance sheets composed of assets, liabilities, total net assets $15.3 million. Income statement, you have your revenues over expenditures. You have revenues under expenditures, the amount of $1.2 million. I'll go over a little bit more on this in detail. Fund balances, you have two categories. One is designated or committed, $6.2 million, and some that's undesignated of $9 million. And sales tax collections, we're in excess of 5.85% above last year, or $279,000 over last year. Page 2, you have your statement of financial conditions. You have your assets composed of cash, investments, and receivables total of $15.4 million. Current liabilities represent accounts payables of $46,000. Fund balance broken up into two sections, $6.2 million. That's designated, I'll go over that schedule right now, and undesignated of $9 million. Total liability, equity, and fund balance, $15.4 million. Next one I would like to go over is page 4. You have your statement of revenue changes, expenditure and change in fund balance. It represents your revenues and expenditures. You have your budget and your actuals. As you can see there, your total revenues of $5.4 million representing sales tax and interest income. Then you have your operating expenditures, which is your administrative, legal, and city administrative costs of $975,000. Capital expenditures, $2.7 million, which relates to a land purchase and a vehicle purchase of $50,000. Total capital expenditures, $2.8 million. Then you have your incentive expenditures of projects that have been met certain criteria, $1.4 million. Non-incentive expenditures of $1.5 give you total expenditures of $6.7 million. That's why right now you have expenditures in excess of revenues in the amount of $1.2 million. Next report I would like to go over is page number 7. This is a sales tax comparisons between fiscal year 2018-2019 through the month of September. Again, actuals year to date, we've have higher increase in sales tax, about $280,000 or 5.85% above. And page number 9, this schedule gives you the commitments that are currently made by GBIC. Total under incentive programs of the various projects of $6.2 million. All non-incentive have been paid for the month for the fiscal year of September 30th. Total unreserved but designated $6.2 million. And go to page number 16 gives you the list of your capital assets as September 30th. It's broken down by land improvements, and vehicles. Total capital assets of $11.8 million. The last section I would like to go over is the detailed investment report, which starts on the following page, which is page 17. You have investments composed of cash and investment pools. Total ending balance of September 30th, $14.6 million. The following page breaks down the weighted average days of maturity and the yield that's earning on demand response. Demand accounts. We have our funds invested in the BBVA Compass of $41,000. We keep that amount low because there is an FDIC insurance that we cannot exceed that, so we move the monies in excess that we have into investment pools, was yielding a greater interest rate of 2.15%, which is greater interest rate. Weighted average date to maturity, as per investment policy, the maximum is 270 days. We have 42.56 days that all funds, if needed, we're able to recoup those funds within 42 days. Our yield, we're yielding 2.15%, which is greater than what we measured against the T-bill, 3-month T-bill of 1.85%. So we're getting about 30 basis points above our Treasury comparable T-bill for 3 months. And the last page just gives you a pie graph representing of where the investments are, which is mainly in public investment pools, some in interest-bearing accounts. That concludes the presentation. You have any questions?
Awesome.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On page 4, it shows the interest income is budgeted at 150,000, actually came out 358. Is that because of the change into that investment?
It's a combination. We changed depository banks the previous year, where we have a minimum of 1% floor on our interest rates, and also investing in the pools at a higher yield. That's why.
So you changed to a higher yield?
Yes,
Makes a big difference.
it does.
A lot of money. I move to acknowledge the financials as presented.
I have a motion to acknowledge. Do I have a second? Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lupe.
Item number 5, presentation, discussion, and action on payment on economic incentives regarding the following: Keppel landfills.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. At this point, I want to invite Mr. Randy Gonzalez, representative for Keppel landfills, to come join me, please. All right, before we get to him, I just want to give you guys an update on the report and audit for Keppel landfills contract. Okay, so as all of you know, Keppel landfills has been in operation since 1990 here in Brownsville, and they recently moved into the operation of shipbuilding. Okay, they have never done this operation before. So with this new operation that they needed to do, they needed to ramp up employment. So in March of 2019, we entered a contract with them. Essentially, it was for the creation of 700 new jobs, and at the wage rates of $18.48 per job. Technical difficulties here. Can you push the? Okay, so we went ahead and did an audit because it was that time to do an audit this year. And so we GBIC staff worked with the Keppel landfill staff and reviewed their Texas Workforce Commission quarterly reports. And the summary is on the screen right now. As you can tell, it's more detailed in your packet. But essentially, at the end of the fourth quarter of 2018, they had 432 employees with a baseline of 220. That means that 212 jobs were eligible, but per contract, we pay up to 200 jobs, right? And as you see at the bottom, their average wage for employees was $23.82, which is higher than the $18.48 that's stipulated in the contract. Additionally, it was required in the contract that 75% of the new hires be Brownsville residents. And after reviewing their forms and their reports, it was discovered that 150 of the 200 eligible jobs were Brownsville residents, which equals to 75% and matches their requirement.
Was it exactly 150?
Exactly 150. Right, but that was out of the 212, but we're taking 200, right?
Okay.
Can you please? So staff recommends approval of payment in the amount of $4,000 a job for 200 jobs, which equals to $800,000. Now I know previously it was the budget allotted for 1.2 million, but because we were only doing 200 jobs instead of 295 jobs, it brought that down to 800,000, which are eligible. And right now, Randy Gonzalez with Keppel is going to say a few words. Randy?
Good evening, how y'all doing?
Doing well, Mr. Gonzalez. How are you?
Good, good. So, we got with GBIC and we grow our own. Mario Soy brought this up to me about a few months ago. And of course, kept us more than happy to grow our own, locally, bring some of these individuals left. So we focus on local hires, our local pipeline to build towards the future, and how our workforce currently has impacted the local economy. Local hires, as you can see, 150, that was just for 2018. We go into 2019, it's a bigger number, okay? I will probably be comfortable to say more than 75% of my 871 new employees that we have now are local, all right? Now, when we go towards local pipeline to build towards the future, we are becoming part of an advisory group towards TSC. They're going to be actually coming up with a structural fitting program that we're going to advise them how to do that, because there's no structural fitting program in this region at all. We need structural fitters ourselves, but we're going to build them from the bottom and grow them here locally with the experience on the yard. At the same time, we're also going to be advising them on their welding program as well. The other thing we're also going to be attacking shortly, within the next couple of weeks, is going to be BISD. I'll be meeting hopefully with Dr. Chavez and see what we can do to start recruiting early, because not everyone's going to go to college. We all know that. But at least if we can get these local children, the opportunity to get a job straight out of high school, welder or structural fitter or even pipe fitter. Now the workforce, how I impacted locally recently. Recently, some of my supervisors, superintendents, even myself, when we got to some of our local restaurants around the area, especially in that area where we're located by the port. So you got quite a few restaurants out there, gas stations. A good percentage of our workforce goes to those gas stations or those local restaurants for either lunch or for breakfast. And when I went there, when I went there the other day to one of the restaurants, I was wearing one of my Keppel shirts, and one of the waitresses came up and said, thank you for you guys being here. And I was, what do you mean? And she stated, because of you all here, a lot of us have jobs. Even though those were really full, and you're not the only Keppel employee here. And I looked around and I saw some of my superintendents, and I was like, no, you're right. Well, the food's good, so. So that's how so far we've noticed that impact locally in that area, in that region. And if you go towards that way, if you haven't been that way, you could notice between the hours of, from the early morning into about 6 p.m. at night, it's full. And you can see the line is backed up, because I got to drive to there on the way home. It's backed up with that one light, right there by where Highway 48 and Ruben Torres is at. So that's something we've been doing. That's something we're working on. We have other stuff that we're working on, but we want to, clarify. We want to clarify this with you all. Okay?
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, for the
Thank you.
presentation. Do we have any questions?
At this time, we'd like to entertain any questions that we have.
I don't have any questions. I'd just like to say thanks for your time. Thanks for coming to address us.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your effort.
Appreciate it.
Hope you keep getting successful, keep growing.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
That being said, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the incentive as discussed and outlined in the contract.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Awesome. Real quick, just to let you all know, great. It was awesome working. GBIC overall, Mario, Ramiro, really good staff in total.
Thank you, sir.
And we're going to
Thanks.
continue to work forward with you all.
Thanks again for your time. I spoke with Ramiro and I asked him to make sure that the line of communication is open and always available between yourselves and us as a board, but us as an organization. Just so we can help whenever you do go sit at the table with BISD or TSC. Please do invite us, because that's another aspect that we can help with.
Will do. We will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, we have conversations already about how will we engage the next window of opportunity for the contract approval, and how we're going to report the hirings and the like,
Okay.
to have more clarity with that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, do it, man.
absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, we've got a check
We
here
invite
signing.
you
If
to
you want to do a quick
Take a
presentation.
quick picture.
It's coming out of your bank account, though. You might want to wait till payday to cash it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
Let's,
Carla, can you move to the side a little? Ready? Mr. Sanchez, can we take it? Okay.
ready? You ready? Item number 6, presentation, review, and action on incentive request, Vida.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I was asked, this is the second time this has come in front of the board. I was asked previously to go to the incentives committee and get an actual figure from them for the recommendation. And the recommendation is, from the incentive committee, is that based on their understanding of GBIC's intent to realign funding with the characteristics of Type A EDOs, the GBIC Incentives Committee has voted unanimously to fund VITA's request, and the funding recommendation is $82,500. Additionally, the Incentives Committee strongly recommends that the job training provided through this funding be focused on industrial construction trades. The Incentives Committee uses a set of criteria to determine funding eligibility. While this is not an exhaustive list, typically the criteria includes the following: a company's fiscal position, the number of jobs created by funded project, wages of the positions created with funding, and the ROI to the community. GBIC's incentives funding from previous contracts ranges from $1,000 to $6,000 per job. Although VITA's request does not create jobs in our community, we recognize that it does provide job training. Therefore, the Incentives Committee framed VITA's request within this criteria, and based on that, the committee voted to fund $1,500 per job for the 55 persons who will receive job training. And that was their complete recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Alemán.
Can I ask some questions?
Of course.
I'm looking at the recommendation, last paragraph. It says, although VITA's request does not create jobs in our community, we recognize that it does provide job training. Now, we just heard some people testify this week, last week, that there are approximately 55 people going through a program that are being matriculated out every year. Why can't we call that job creation?
Well, because the VITA is not creating the jobs. Like in the previous case, Keppel Amphils is creating the jobs, and those people are working for Keppel Amphils. In this case, VITA is training students to get jobs somewhere else.
So,
Somewhere else but in the community, though.
Well, not all of them are in
Well,
Brownsville.
If we take what Ms. Bingham has said earlier, and if she's saying, we're willing to hire these people, that would be the same thing as Keppel, wouldn't it? I mean, what's the difference? We're paying $4,000 per job for Keppel for 200 jobs,
Right.
and they're getting, what, $20 an hour?
They're
From-
receiving $23, yes.
From about 14 is the average
Right,
out the
the
port.
prevailing
So
wage of
there's a
Cook County.
$6 variance there.
Mhm.
And here, you're getting a person who's trained as a nurse earning minimum $35,000. So there's just as much of an increment, if not more, per employee.
I'll also
Right,
add that we've incentivized other organizations for job training to more than twice as much as the VITA program is asking for. Additionally, in the strategic plan that's also on our agenda, there's a statistic or a chart that uses census data and employment data. And to summarize it, at the top of the list, most of you probably can't see it, but the top of the list is healthcare. And this is a chart that shows Brownsville residents basically leaving the area to go to work. I think if we could work with the hospitals to sign an MOU, saying that if we're willing to pay for the training of 55 students a year, and they're willing to hire those 55 students a year, I think that's a win-win. I'd like to have students graduate and walk into the job the next day.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Just to clarify, this is only a recommendation from the incentives committee.
Yeah,
I
I understand.
We can, so if we so choose, fund the full amount, or go with the recommendation, whatever this board so chooses.
Well, I would like to move that we fund them for the full amount, but that in 6 months, they need to come to us with a plan, working with local hospitals or whoever is willing to hire these students, so that we can rest assured that we're fitting firmly within the terms of our, the latitude of our regulations. And yet, if we can do that with the help of a hospital, then I think we fit squarely within the terms of what we're allowed to do.
I'd like to second the motion and add that we typically incentivize on 10-year terms, meaning that some of the contract incentives we provide are obligated for 10 years. This will be year 12 of our commitment to VITA on a year-by-year basis. I would be happy if VITA would try to find some alternative funding in the future, just so we can continue doing economic development and provide a variety. But I do second the motion to
So
fund it in full.
I have a motion, and I have a second. Do I have any other discussion and comments? Okay. Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Cardenas? Thank
I'm in favor. I'm in favor, yes.
you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just suggest that maybe VITA also talk to BCIC and other funding agencies to bring them all to a table with us present, so that we can all communally talk about
Yes.
how to make it work better for everybody.
We'll make a note of that.
Congratulations, thank you.
Can I get just a quick clarification? Am I hearing correctly that you're wanting to focus only on allied health,
Say that again.
which is based on the discussion that you had, because we don't train only in allied health, but is the board saying that they want us to train just allied health?
We
which
did
is
not.
Nurses,
We did not say that, but if you'd like, we can set up a workshop meeting where we can discuss the best approach moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I, Mr. Chairman, the contract actually specifically has 4 different areas, I believe. The contract, not just allied health, correct? So it's already in the contract.
manufacturing trades,
Personally, I can't speak to the rest of the board, but I appreciate a little more fluidity. So if for some reason the job market changes in 5 years, you can react. But again, we can discuss all that at a later date in a workshop.
because we are able to be flexible when the jobs are here, we can start moving out anyway, we have that discussion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, discussion and action to amend GBIC bylaws.
Do we have anyone presenting this, or are we just talking about it?
So we can discuss it. I know that 3 members of this board were present when discussing these changes to the bylaws. I believe we were all in agreement with where we had concerns, and by reading over their packet, all these concerns were addressed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, ma'am.
I was part of that committee, and I would like to move to have these bylaws approved and adopted, because there's two members that are,
Sure.
need to be formally,
I think that it would be better if a current member make the movement. So I
Yeah, yeah,
move to adopt the
Do
bylaws.
I have a motion to approve the bylaws, subject to city commission approval as well? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a
Thank you.
motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Awesome.
Item number 8, discussion and action to approve fiscal year 2020 operations budget.
Mr. Chairman, again, if you recall, we also had a workshop regarding the budget.
Yes, sir.
And there were some recommendations made to have some changes of the budget that was presented at that time. Since then, Janie has emailed everybody those changes. You also have them in your packet. And our request is that the board approves the changes and adopt the 2020 budget.
Do we have any questions on the budget from Mr. Lozoya or staff? Proposed changes?
I'd like to look at it again because a few things have come to my attention since the last workshop, and things that are called out in the strategic plan that we hadn't really considered when we had the last workshop. Some of which are infrastructure, which is fine and we can handle. Some of it is things like digital divide. I'm not really sure how to work it into the budget at this point.
So one option is to adopt the budget with the ability to amend it as identified by the board before it's submitted to the city.
Okay. And we also talked about potentially deregulating some funds. I think if we do that, we could probably allocate those funds to something specific when see fit. So I move to approve the 2020 budget as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Resounding aye.
Item number 9, presentation and adoption of GBIC Economic Strategic Plan.
Mr. Chairman, board members, as you recall, we had a workshop on the strategic plan this week, and there was a lot of discussion during that meeting. What the staff decided to do was put together a little summary of some of the items that were expressed during the workshop. And so it talks about a little bit about the strategies and the activities that are being done by the staff currently, all based on the strategic plan, and they're all listed in your, I think it's in your packet. Is it in their packet?
Yes.
So what we want is to see if we can get the board to adopt the strategic plan as is, and with the consideration that it can be amended moving forward. Also taking into consideration the dashboard that's attached to that worksheet, where the dashboard itself can be amended based on the strategic plan as well.
Okay, thank you. So these sheets attached are meant to be as a summary and not to represent the strategic plan as a
Exactly.
whole, right? Okay. Because I would like to dive a little deeper and figure out the strategy for approaching the strategic plan. But I think it's a great strategic plan that ensures success for Brownsville and for GBIC, so.
I think Mr. Wolf had some insights into the strategic plan when we had that last meeting. Are they incorporated in here?
The insights as in reference
He
to what?
wanted to drill down and get more specific about certain steps that were going to be taken
Right,
in the implementation of the plan.
yes, sir, so we discussed about implementing the plan. So this particular item here is adopting the vehicle, and then the next item would be,
Plan.
how do we implement what we adopted? And to answer your question, yes.
And the activities that are shown there is already the plan being implemented, because those activities come straight out of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah. I
And
think-
additionally, if I may add, sorry, is that the dashboard will then represent are these items working or not? And if they're not working, obviously, then the board can adjust direction, and we would be able to then present either quarterly or biannually, so that we can make sure that we are either doing the right thing or the wrong thing at each time.
Do we have any other questions about the strategic plan, Ms. Matamoros or Mr. Lafayette?
No, I move to approve the strategic plan.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 10, discussion and acknowledgement of GBIC Executive Director and staff reports regarding recent activities and progress related to current ongoing projects.
Mr. Chairman, Board, regarding the staff reports, I'll draw your attention to, under recruitment, other activities, that we met with Project King Kong. It's a newly adopted project. And the key point is that it is one of the projects that was mined out of Carla's strategy to exercise her BRE program. So in her BRE visits came this particular project. Is now a named project. So we're looking forward to now Ramiro picking the ball up, and then hopefully passes it back to us, and eventually hopefully passes it to you, and becomes a real activity here in Brownsville. So I just wanted to share that with you, that it's moving along, it's doing very well. Next, you can see that the BRE has completed some of their visits already, and we'll continue presenting that. And also we'll probably do a presentation at the next board meeting and where we are at that point. On page number 2, I'll draw your attention to the calendar of events. Very fruitful, in my opinion. As you know, some of us went to the mandatory tax workshop in San Antonio. We learned a lot during that time. Board member Graham Sevier was there as well, and others. Glad to see others from Brownsville there as well. We also had, as you know, the workshops that we already discussed here. Some of us also attended the TDC annual conference, and we learned a lot there as well. And Ramiro just returned from the IEDC annual conference, and we'll have Ramiro create a summary and share with you of his findings of that particular trip. And also draw your attention to the fact that on October 25th, we have secured the industry-led forum. All of you have an invitation. If not, we'll make sure to provide it to you. On the next item, under community relations, I'll draw your attention to, for example, item number 2. Some of you joined us for first meeting of GBIC BCIC City of Brownsville meeting. Today we had our second meeting of that type, and we plan to continue having those meetings going forward. Also, I've met with Dr. Kabaj, who is the Dean of Engineering UTRGV, and asked him to follow through in the recommendation from the board to provide us some documentation about their expenditures of the MOU and what should we get in return from the monies that they have not expended. So he has agreed to create that document and provide it to us, so I've been working with him on that. Last, I'd like to show you there the item where it says meeting with TSC BISD. That particular item specific is related to some robots that they were the Toyota North America committed to us. My understanding is already they're inbound somewhere from Kentucky this way, and one of those 2 big robots, one will go to BISD and one will go to TSC, and we're continuing discussions on to implement certain curriculum to create those relevant programs for workforce development strategies based on our regrow own and based on our strategic plan.
Awesome. So from my understanding, Mario, thank you for staying active and diligent. There's one thing I don't see on here, and from my understanding that Dallas Fed was here to address the problem of digital divide in the city of Brownsville.
Right, so this is usually 1 month back, so that item will be in the other one. I think nobody here on the board was when GBIC invited the Dallas Federal First Bank for our first Grow Our Own strategy event. They were attended. We helped them create that particular presentation, actually, that was presented in the city.
So how did it go?
Unfortunately, we had our team member that was supposed to attend was sick.
Sure.
Ramiro was traveling to the IDC, and I had a prior commitment with EDC and McAllen with the China activities. But to answer your question, we're very familiar with Jordana Barton's findings and things. We've been working with her diligently. Actually, we're the ones that passed the ball over to the city and asked them to help us with that item.
If a situation ever arises like that where staff isn't able to go, I ask that you please either relay the message to the chairman
Sure.
or two other board members, because that's, in my opinion, if the Dallas Fed is here doing a workshop, that means they're trying to give us money, which would benefit local community. And again, I think as a board, we're starting to recognize that collaboration is the best way to progress.
Agreed.
And I would hate to miss any further opportunity for collaboration.
It's important.
And I will say, yeah, TEDC was great. I think all of us that went brought back some ideas that we can implement pretty quickly. It should be pretty effective and pretty low cost. So, yeah, that was a good event, in my opinion.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Loya?
No, thank you. I move to acknowledge.
All right, do we have a motion to acknowledge? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Item number 11, consideration and action on Resolution 2019-10-1917, adopting meeting rules and procedures.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution is a codification of recent changes to the Texas Open Meetings Act under Chapter 551. This will now allow us to adopt those measures that the legislature recently passed. It will also memorialize the process that this organization has in place, and we're just now going to codify it within a resolution so everyone knows what the rules are. It'll have procedures for meetings, sign-up procedures, order and decorum, enforcement procedures regarding disturbance and abating certain conduct within posted meetings, and posting requirements that technically, we should all know about, but now it's going to be codified in a resolution, and other provisions related to closed session. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be passing around the resolution sometime tomorrow.
Obviously, I believe we're all in favor of being in alignment with state law. I don't know if it wasn't included in my package.
No, it wasn't. We'll get that to you.
Okay.
I'm going to move to table till we can see it written, unfortunately.
Okay, I have a motion to table it. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to table and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion's tabled.
Thank you,
Motion's
Council.
tabled.
Item number 12, purchasing, no items to present. Item number 13, closed session, no items to present. Item number 14, reconvene, no items to present. Item number 15, adjournment.
That was in record time.
We're out of paper.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah. I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Yes, you do.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.